most people have seen a radio before. In the simplest form, it is a filter, an amplifier, and some demodulation mechanism to decode the signal. On the other hand, an SDR is even more straightforward in principle. It simply amplifies the received RF signal and sends it to your computer in a digital format. Ideally, all the filtering and demodulation are done in the digital domain. This means that in theory, the SDR has the capability of any RF device and much more. Now, let's take a closer look at the internals of an SDR. The LNA stage is usually made from a broadband variable gain amplifier to accept different input power levels at different frequencies. The ADC component is more tricky. It is impractical to sample RF data at a high frequency. A mixer is added to downconvert the frequency. The downconverted signal is then sampled and sent to your laptop for processing. There are many SDRs on the market. Since most of the SDRs and their software are open sourced, you can almost pair any SDR with any software. Each software and hardware has its own pros and cons. In this video, I will be using the AirSpy software, and I will go over some of the SDR options. First, I will be demonstrating the RTL SDR with the AirSpy software. To download AirSpy SDR, go to AirSpy website and download their latest version. Unzip the file and open zack.exe. This is the GUI used for installing the drivers. Most of the SDR on the market require this driver install, except AirSpy SDRs. Now connect your SDR device and click Option, List all devices. You need to make sure that you choose the correct one to update the driver. Otherwise, it will render some of your computer hardware useless. The correct one will have the USB ID listed here. All this info is on rtlsdr.com under Quick Start Guide. After successfully installing the driver, we can connect to the antenna, open the AirSpy software, and connect to the correct SDR. We can adjust the gain and display setting to get a strong signal. Then we can tune into some FM channel, which have a wideband FM modulation.
A backstory of a woman who didn't even know that,
Or NOAA weather stations with a narrowband FM modulation.
East-northeast, wind speed 2 knots, wind gust 2, water temperature 10.7.
Or getting some images from a satellite. This process is more involved, and I will be showing you how to do that in this video. First, let's select a satellite to capture the images. NOAA, Meteor, and GOES satellites are 3 good options. NOAA and Meteor satellites orbit around the Earth, while GOES satellites stay still relative to the Earth's rotation. Newer satellites, such as the GOES and Meteor satellites, are digitally encrypted. In this video, I will capture images from NOAA satellites, since it is easiest to capture. This chart shows all of the NOAA satellites launched from 1978 to 2005. Although many are launched, only a few are operational. From my experiment, at the time I made this video, only NOAA 15, 18, and 19 produce a good signal that can be easily captured. Satellite signals are relatively weak. Optimizing your setup will ensure good capture. I will go through some of the improvements you can make to ensure your successful capture. First, let's talk about the SDR. Here are some of the most common SDRs on the market. AirSpy Discovery is one of the best you can get in terms of receiving performance. The trade-off is the price and small frequency range. RTL SDR and WeLike SDR have the same RF chipset. They offer the best price-to-performance ratio. HackRF1 is the most versatile. It can both receive and transmit, and it also has an extremely wide frequency range. Though at $500, it is a bit pricey. I sampled an air traffic control frequency with different SDRs to give you an idea of the performance. This is AirSpy SDR. This is RTL SDR. Note that the internal clock of the RTL SDR is not very accurate, and I have to apply some correction factors. This is the HackRF1. Next, let's talk about filters. Specifically, I'm talking about the filter you can buy independently and attach to the front of your SDR. In theory, SDR does filtering in the digital domain, and there is no need for an analog filter. However, front-end low-noise amplifiers are not perfectly linear devices. This nonlinearity can cause adjacent frequencies to show up in the desired frequency spectrum, thus causing interference. This effect is called intermodulation. IIP3 is a measure of how well a device can resist this interference. Usually, filters have much higher IIP3, thus it makes sense to have an analog filter in the front of the SDR. There are a couple common filters on the market. The most common one is the FM and AM bandstop filter. It filters out FM and AM broadcasts, which are usually really strong in comparison to other signals, such as air traffic or NOAA weather station. Here, I sampled an air traffic control frequency close to the FM broadcast frequency with the FM bandstop filter.
34, speed 18, 0 knots prepare.
Here it's without a filter.
Romeo, Vancouver, Altimeter 3013.
Honestly, the RTL SDR already did a really good job, and the filter did not make much difference in the test. A good antenna is one of the most critical steps to ensure good capture. The satellite is constantly moving. It is paramount to have an omnidirectional antenna, so you don't have to adjust antenna's position all the time. Two of the good options are ground plane antenna and disco antennas. There are online calculators to help you calculate the dimension of antenna if you choose to make your own antenna. I sampled an air traffic control frequency using a ground plane antenna.
34, speed 18, 0 knots prepare.
I did the same experiment again with a retractable antenna. The noise floor is much higher. A good location is definitely critical for a good capture. It is best to select an open area and avoid power lines. Because I'm lazy, I did not select a good location when capturing. You will see later how that impacts my result. Last but not least, let's talk about the software. There are three main pieces of software that I use for capturing. SDR Sharp is used to interface with the SDR and record all the data. Orbitron allows you to see the motion of the satellites in real time, and the WX2IMG does the final image conversion. With all of your setup ready, we can start capturing some images. Both Orbitron and WX2IMG allow you to run satellite flight path predictions. The window of capture is usually only 10 minutes. Plan beforehand to make sure you take full advantage of the window. I live in Vancouver, so you can see that NOAA 18 is about to enter the capture range. I tuned it into an air traffic control channel to check that my SDR is working properly. Once I had everything ready, I changed to NOAA 18's ATP frequency. At this point, we just have to wait for the capture to finish. Now, I want to take this time to explain my poor antenna placement and how that impacts my result. Because I was capturing in my backyard, my house was actually blocking all the signals coming from the south. So when the satellite is flying towards me from the south, I cannot get any usable signal. After it is flying away from me, now facing north, I'm able to get a good signal. This capture was not ideal. I later changed my antenna position and got a better image.